Good evening, everybody.
Kabbalah Harav, how are you?
Thank God.
Kabbalah Harav, are we still on continuation on the loss of answering Amen?
Let's see where we are. I'll tell you in a second.
Thank you, please.
It looks like we did Zayin, so I think we're going to Het. Okay, here it is. Yeah. Oh, we did this already. Okay, I guess we're going to Tet. Yeah, so Zayin and Tet were like the same. So we already read this. So what we'll do is we'll go to Shulchan Aruch and try to do it there. Yeah, so let's see what's in the Shulchan Aruch here. This is not what we're doing. Just removing all the extra stuff here. Clutter out. So let's see Chet. We did this one. So we're going to Tet, yeah. Okay, so it says like this. We did this too. So I guess we're going to Yud. Yeah, no, going to Yud. Okay, finally got to the right place. Yeah. So yeah, so I just want to read through the tour a little bit on what we did in the past because I'm not sure if we did it, but anyway, I'll just read through it. Okay, okay, so it says like this in the tour. Omer Shliach Tzibur. It says the Shliach Tzibur, Baruch Mechayeh HaMetim, right? This blessing. Hem onim amen, they answer amen. V'adayin lo ra'u tchiyat hametim. So he says, right? But they never saw, right, resurrection of the dead. But we believe that Hashem will resurrect the dead, right? That's why we. Omer shliach tzibur baruch goel Yisrael. Then, right, we talk about redemption later on. Hem onim amen, and they answer amen. V'adayin lo nigalu. Even though they were not redeemed yet, right? We still have Hamas, right? So we're not redeemed yet, but V'im tomar nigalu. So now he says, right, the tricky question over here. Wait a second. But if you're going to ask me, nigalu, hare chazu v'nishtabadu, they were redeemed, right? What does that mean? The second temple, right? They came back. There was redemption. But he says, where? But they went back to Galut. They went back to exile. So that doesn't really count anymore, right? We don't have that. We don't have that anymore. So that's eliminated, right? That's that's the way it is, right? But the Jews believe that Hashem is destined to redeem them, right? So that's why we say it. Same thing, right? He says the Shliach Tzibur says Bonei Yerushalayim. He builds Jerusalem. But it's still destroyed, right? To Jerusalem, right? If you would have seen what's going on today, the tour, he would be surprised. It's pretty built up already. So things were different in his days, right? It was just like a big desert over there. There was nothing there. Today we have a huge city there going on, right? But the truth is, that even though we have a huge city there in Jerusalem, and it's a wonderful city, by the way, best place in the world to live. There's nothing like it. I must tell you, Once you live there, you don't want to go anywhere else. But anyway, right? It's still not really built, So why do I tell you that? Because the original area of Jerusalem, which is the old city, the old city, by the way, is a little tricky because the area that it covers is not the area of the original city. They call it the old city, but it's not that old. What does that mean, right? This city was made by the Ottomans, right? The Turkish. They're the ones who built that city, the old city, whatever you call it, right? And they're the ones who built that wall around it. There's a wall around it. When you go, right? I remember when I first went to Israel. I don't know how long ago it was. Whatever, 30 years ago, whatever it was. When I first went there, I looked at we came to Jerusalem and I see the wall. I said, "Oh my God, this is like the real wall of Jerusalem." I thought this was like the real wall, the original, but it's not. It's not the original wall. So it's a very tricky mess over there going on. So a lot of tricky things going on. So that wall was built by the Ottomans. So they built that old city on territory which doesn't cover the original city. Like we're talking about, percentage-wise, not all of it. Some of it does. So what happens is that when you go outside the walls of the old city today, you have like this area which is like a valley, and this valley is all habitated by Arabs in Shimon. That's what it is. So that's the area of the old city. That's the real old city. Understand? So the truth is that part of the city, which is the real city, is not built. It's inhabited by these frogs over there, whatever, God knows, whatever they are, right? So that's the way it is, So the truth is, it's not really what you may think. I remember I saw one time Tshuva, the Moshe Feinstein, Megillat Moshe. He talks about this, he says, Jerusalem is built up, whatever, right? Wow, Baruch Hashem, we got a beautiful city going on there. But the truth is that, if you would have gone there, I don't know if you ever visited there, but if you would have gone there and checked what's going on, it's not exactly what it looks like. Whatever, it is what it is, right? But Hashem gave us whatever He gave us, we're happy. Baruch Hashem, it's better than what it was before, It's an improvement. So anyway, right? So what the trick is there? The geography. There's a Temple Mount, right? So that Temple Mount is the original one that was built by Herod, right? The Hurdus, what do we call him? Herod the Great, we call him, right? We call him Hurdus Sarasha. He was a Rasha. There's a whole story behind that. I'm not going to get into that now. But anyway, right? He's the one who built the Temple Mount there. So what he did was, he destroyed the original edifice, and he built a new one. There's a whole story behind that, by the way. Also, that it says in the Talmud that Herod, what he was a slave actually. He was he wasn't a black guy, but he was a white slave. So what happened was that he killed off the Hasmonean dynasty. All the Maccabees. He killed off all the family that were the rulers at that time. They were the kings. And he ruled instead of them, killed them. He was their slave, by the way. He was their slave, and he plotted against them, and wiped them out. So what he did was, once he wiped them out, he ruled over Israel. So this guy was actually a slave, it's a very strange situation, whatever. But anyway, right, he was ruling. And what he did was, when he first took the kingdom, he had some problems with the rabbis, some issues there, whatever. So he got mad at them, So what he did was he killed off all the high court, the rabbis, the Sanhedrin, the whole. He killed off every one of them. So what happened was that there was no rabbis like the Gedolim, the big rabbis. There was nobody left. he wiped out everybody. You know what I mean? So what happened was that in the end, he had feelings of guilt. They did that. He felt guilty. So what happens is that there was one rabbi left there, from the big rabbis. His name was Shimon ben Shetach. I think he was from King David, from the line of King David. So anyway, he calls, Shimon ben Shetach. He tells him, he says, I feel really bad, I wiped out the whole rabbis, the whole high court. I assassinated them. He said, what should I do, to atone for my sin? So comes Shimon ben Shetach, right? Gives him a wise advice, He says, what you should do? He says, rebuild the whole temple, from scratch, like make a nice edifice. Because the original one and the second temple wasn't really so impressive. As it says in the Bible, it talks about that, right, in Tanakh. So what happened was that, so he says, oh, gee, that's a good idea, something, rung in his head. Oh, yeah, that sounds good to me. Wow, that's good. So this guy, they say he was a very serious builder. He knew how to build. He was really good at it. He built a lot of things in Israel. He was a big builder. So what happened was that he rebuilt the whole temple, from scratch. So it turns out, right, that they say that this temple that he built was incredibly magnificent, like something out of this world, Go figure, right? This guy turns out to be the best builder of all of them, right? So what happens is that he builds the temple, and he made it much larger than the original. He made it bigger. He extended it, and he did all kinds of things. It was a very impressive. Talmud says about this, right? Whoever didn't see that second temple of Hurdus, of Herod, he never saw a beautiful building in his life. Can you imagine? That's what they say, So it must have been something really out of this world. So anyway, right? The rule is like this, right? If you look at the Mishnah, there's a Mishnah. It's called Masechet Midot. So over there it talks about the structure of the temple, the way it was structured, the spaces, and all the measurements and all that stuff. So over there it says, right, that the way Jerusalem is structured is that the Temple Mount is in the north of the city, and the city itself is in the south. That's what you see, right? When you go there today, you see what's on the south side of the Temple Mount. It's where all the Arabs live, that's so they're still holding that place, in a sense, they still are on the Temple Mount themselves, over there. They still occupy that. They're also holding the area of the south. So Jerusalem, it seems like it's rebuilt on the outside, but on the inside, it's actually, still in the hands of the Arabs. Very strange, scenario going on over there. Whatever, right? So I don't want to talk about that too much, right? It's not a topic, but the point is like this, that that part is not. So we have to really rebuild Jerusalem. Still, it's not rebuilt, that area. Whatever. So okay, so goes on the tour to explain. Right, so then this we already did. Anyway, it's good to read this because there are extra things here which I think we didn't catch yet. So he brings this brighter, right, from the Gemara, that we don't answer amen chatufa, right, lo amen ketufa, lo amen yituma, right, these three types of amens which have blemishes in them. We already talked about this, right, at length, right, we discussed all these things, what they mean. Also, he says, right, don't say it too fast, don't be quick draw, right, McGraw, what do they call it, right? Don't be one of those, just blurt it out. You shouldn't say it, but also, without any kind of concentration, like what you're saying. Ben Azai Omer, right? It says the Ben Azai in the Talmud there. Right? So this is what I wanted to also right, read, because we didn't read this before. It says Ben Azai, right, that a person who says chatufa, amen chatufa, so we already talked about this, right, that it means that, he's skipping the syllables there, not saying the aleph properly, right, so all these things. So he says they're going to shorten his lifespan, just like he shortens the amen, lo aleinu, they're going to shorten his lifespan. That's what it says in the Talmud. You already mentioned, right, in the Bet Yosef, that if he makes it long, they actually elongate his lifespan, right? Just the opposite. We talk about that. So it goes both ways, right? Like usual, as usual. That's the way it is in the Torah. Usually it has, goes both ways. Okay, good. So also, right, if he says ketufai, katfu yamav, also same thing, right? If he does it without mentioning the nun, right, pronouncing the nun, same problem. And this, right, even worse, he said, look at this. If you say amen yetoma, right, we already described what that means. That right, we gave several descriptions, but the main one was that he doesn't know what the blessing was. He answers amen, and he's liable for that blessing. There's all kinds of opinions that we went through. Anyway, the point is, right, that he says that his sons will become orphans. He says, what does that mean? That he's gonna, die young. Can you imagine these things? Very, very, very strong words. Yeah, right? So in other words, you don't want to be, doing things like this, right? So what you want to do is make sure you pronounce the amen properly, right? Fully with the syllables and all the letters and so forth and so on. That's what you really want to do. Okay, good. So if he says it long, they elongate his lifestyle, right? Give him long life, longevity. Right? Like we said, you shouldn't do too much, right, to make it too long, as we already said that with Yosef. We talked about why that is, right? What's the reason why you shouldn't make it too long? אפילו יש עדיין מיעוט מהאנשים, אין צריך להמתין להם, כיוון שהמאריכים בו יותר מדי. אמר רבי שמעון, כל העונה אמן בכל כוחו. So it says, right, Rabbi Shimon, yeah, we already read this, I'll just skip over it. 1 second. So now we're catching up, right, to the current halacha, which is Yud. So here he talks about this. It says, we're almost done with the tour, by the way. It's almost finished. So it says, let's say he forgot. He didn't say Yaleh Ve'avo, right? We just had Rosh Chodesh, right, recently. So, we say Yaleh Ve'avo and Rosh Chodesh, and we had Chol HaMoed. Also there we say it in the Amidah and in the Birkat HaMazon. It says, if it's Rosh Chodesh or Bechol Shel Moed, in Chol HaMoed, or Bechol Davar Shetzarich Lechazor B'Shvilo, or anything we have to return, so he says, what you should do is, if you forgot to say it, hear it from the Chazan, and right, have in mind to fulfill your obligation from him. So you have to do all the, the whole Amidah from beginning to end, 18 blessings. Until from beginning to end. He also fulfills obligation, right? So he gives you a simple solution, right? If you forgot Yaleh Ve'avo, listen to the Chazan from beginning to end, just like, you were like a dummy, you don't know how to pray, right? The dummy, I don't know how to pray. So, right, so he listened to him from beginning to end, as we said, that's what you got to do, right? So he also fulfills obligation like that, even though he knows how to pray, but, since he made a mistake and he forgot it, so this is the way he fixes up the problem. Okay, yeah, so that's what the Torah says. So he says, so it says in Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara there, that the Shliach Tzibur only can, fulfill the obligation of one who is anus, right? Meaning what? He was unavoidably, right, prevented from doing something. What does that mean? For instance, he can't come to the shul, right? Let's say he's working at that time, whatever, so he can't come to the shul. But he says here it's different. Why? Because he already prayed, he forgot, he didn't mention it. Motziach Baki. So therefore, here it says the Shliach Tzibur can even fulfill the obligation of somebody who knows how to pray. Because, he forgot to say it. Okay, that's the end of the tour. Let's see the Beit Yosef here. So it says Beit Yosef, Ken Katvat Tosfot, right? That's what's in Tosfot. The Rabbeinu Yonah, the Arosh, the Rashba, right? All these rabbis, they all agreed. The Rabbi Mordechai, Perek Tchilat HaShachar, and this Perek, B'Shem Bala Al-Chot Gedolot, right? So all these rabbis agree. On Parshet Ta'ama Tosfot, the Arosh, so he says they explain the reason. Sham, B'Sof Rosh Hashanah, Mishum D'Aminon B'Rosh Hashanah, Keshem Shemotzi Et Baki, Kach Motzi Et Baki. Because we say in Rosh Hashanah, it's just like the Shliach Tzibur can fulfill somebody who's not expert, doesn't know how to pray, can also fulfill the obligation of someone who knows how to pray. But even though we said over there that Rabbi Gamliel only absolved the ones that were in the field, right? What does that mean? They can't come to the shul because they're working, agriculture, farming, right? Ani said the tree there. They can't come, they're working. אבל טעה לא יש לפרש דהיינו לא יתפלל כלל. When it comes to making a mistake, no. So he says, we explain like this. That's if he didn't pray at all. אבל איך שיתפלל, but if he did already pray, כבר לא חשבין עליו כאילו לא יתפלל. So then we consider it like we don't consider it like he didn't pray כלל at all. אף על פי שכתבו תוספות said. Sharam pasak the dafka shachach leazkir shel Rosh Chodesh. The Ram paskins only if he forgot if he forgot to mention Rosh Chodesh, or shachach beracha shlema, if he forgot like the whole blessing altogether, one blessing is skipped. That is. We don't tell him to go back and pray. In other words, we don't tell him to rely on the Chazan. So why is that? So he says, but Rabbeinu the Tur doesn't really agree with him, so he didn't bring this opinion. Okay. So he says the reason why I didn't bring down this opinion, says Beit Yosef, is because all the poskim don't agree with it. It seems like they didn't really, they don't mention this kind of thing. So therefore, right, he didn't bother to bring down a single opinion, against the vast majority. That's the whole thing.
Kavod Harav, does this also apply for the ones who are working for the community? What is it, communal affairs or something like that? Or just agriculture?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we talked about this before, the issue of doing public service, things like this.
Public service, yes.
But it really depends on what it is though, because it has, I'm not really sure what kind of service you're talking about.
No. Well, it says here that if it fulfills the obligation for the ones who are in agriculture, they couldn't make it, correct?
I'm sorry, one more, yeah. No, these guys are working for, just for their family to bring bread on the table,
Oh, okay, so
that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
They're not doing public service.
Okay, that's what the clarification.
So even that, yeah. But they got to do it, you got to do what you got to do, you know what I mean? This is always a classic case, in New York, we have here bagels, a lot of bagels going on. So, these guys who, make bagels, you got to get up early in the morning, because it's like a whole process they go through. So these guys got to be they got to be at work at 5 a.m., they don't have time really to pray much or whatever. So, that's the way it is, right? So some people have to be at work very early, these guys like this, these bagel guys. So, et cetera, whatever. So, they have no choice. What can you do, right? Okay, you don't want to work in bagels, the boss will fire you and you have no job, right? And you'll be out of, you'll be homeless, right? In the shelter somewhere. God forbid, So, what can you do? He's got no choice, right? That's his job.
And if they want to fulfill the obligation at Mincha, let's say, they can make up for the Shacharit one, correct? Let's say that they had to wake up early.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yes, can they?
Yeah, of course. I understand what you're asking. So the rule is like this, that a person, let's say, starting to work at 5 a.m., right?
Yes.
Just as so there, he's not really, he's not really available to pray shachrit at the right time.
Correct.
But he still has like till 10:30, to pray. So if he can grab something there until 10:30, he can still, do something there. You know what I mean? If the boss will give him a break, that's one option, right? But if the boss is a nasty boss, right? Some slave driver, so then you may have to pray, like you said, 2 times mincha. That's the situation, Most people don't have such a nasty life, like that in America. Usually they give them some kind of a way to, to keep their religion, right, quote unquote, right? Freedom of religion, So yeah, America is really nice about that. Not like in Europe, they don't, or in South America, they don't regard religion. They don't care about Judaism. They have no regard for it. They could care less about your Shabbat or your, or your, whatever. They don't give a hoot. That's the way it is, Okay, so anyway, right, that's the way it goes. But anyway, right, but either way, right, if you want to do this kind of thing, you got to hear the whole prayer from beginning to end, like, which is not easy to do, by the way, because sometimes you lose concentration, like you start daydreaming, all of a sudden, yeah, what's going on with the war, with the Hamas, this, that, right? What's going on with that? Then you want to all of a sudden, like check your phone, maybe, this and then, so you lose. If you lose concentration, you didn't really do the job there. You got to go, you got to listen from beginning to end. And in our generation, by the way, it's hard to do that because our concentration is so bad. We can't like stick to one thought, for more than 2 minutes without getting distracted by something, or even 2 seconds, maybe. I don't know. God knows. Depending on the person, right? So anyway, Kol ot ve'ot shel tefillah, you got to hear everything, right? Every letter, he says. Oh, every letter. Ha lav achi lav lo. If not, so no. So then, in other words, if you can't do that, if you can't concentrate, like for 6 minutes, 5 minutes, until the chazan starts and finishes, then just go do it yourself, and pray again. That's the only option you have. And which is probably, by the way, what we would do today, because I don't think anybody today can do this. To listen to the chazan for 5 minutes without getting distracted. Okay, well, yeah. So anyway, right? It says, לא, בכל זה בכלל שכתוב שרבנו יכוון שמאי שליח ציבור כל י"ח ברכות, וגם שמח על מה שכתב בתחילת זימן זה. So they also relied on what we wrote in the beginning of the סימן, the beginning chapter, שיוצא בתפילה שליח ציבור, צריך שיכוון, so if you're following an obligation with שליח ציבור, you have to concentrate לכל מה שאומר שליח ציבור, you have to concentrate on everything he says, ממש ועד סוף, כי אדם שמתפלל לעצמו ואין מספיקים, ומסיחין ופוסעין, 3 פסיעות לאחוריהם. And also, right, remember, right, that magic thing that we learned, that also you have to step back 3 steps. Oh, don't forget that one, right? The final clincher, right? To step back. Okay, so בתמני על התוספות, בראש שהביאו ראיה ממסכת בראש השנה, לא אמר בסוף ראש השנה כשם שהוא מוציא את השאינו בקיא, ככה הוא מוציא בקיא, הרבן גם יהיה על פליג רבן מגלה, גם ידי תאינו פותר אלא את שאינו בקיא. So he says, I'm wondering, right, about these rabbis, these 2 rabbis we just mentioned, that they didn't consider the whole conclusion of the Talmud over there. They only brought the beginning part, he says, and they didn't bring the end, which the conclusion is different than the beginning. So he says, I don't know why they did that. בשאר ימות השנה, דקרבן גם יהיה בראש השנה. ביום הכיפורים, וכיוון בשאר ימות השנה קיימינן. So he says, since, right, the conclusion of the Talmud was like this, that when it comes to, the rest of the year, besides the high holy days, that, you can't really do this. So then, how are they telling you to do it? How do they bring, right, the source from Rabban Gamliel, since we don't paskin like him in the Gemara? No, okay, no, good question. So no, well, good question. He also gives you an answer, right? The question is not enough. So he says, ואפשר דאחי כמה כיוון דרבן גמליאל סבר שליח ציבור פוטר את הבקיא, איכא למימר דלא פליגי רבנן עליה אלא בשלא בהתפלל כלל. So he says, you know what? It could be that they hold these Rishonim that we mentioned, that the conclusion that they made in the Talmud was only said regarding somebody who didn't pray at all. So then he can't rely on the Chazan. But it could be that they agree, even those other opinions, the conclusion opinions, that if he already prayed and made a mistake, so then he could do it. That's what he said, that Yosef. Nice answer. Okay, there you go. I guess he got the seal of approval from these the angel, that is the angel friend, right? The Magid of this answer. So there you go, right? That must have been approved. Okay, so we'll see the Shulchan Aruch, and we'll let's stop there, I guess. All right, let's see what's going on here. Shulchan Aruch, מי ששכח ולא אמר יעלה ויבוא. If you forgot, you didn't say יעלה ויבוא, בראש חודש על ראש חודש, או בחול של מועד, או בחול של מועד, חול המועד, או בכל דבר שצריך לחזור בשבילו, or everybody that return for that and do it play again, יכוון דעתו וישמע משליח ציבור. So he says, right, go for it, hear the שליח ציבור, from beginning to end, כל ידע ברכות ממש ועצות, כאדם שמתפלל לעצמו, right, to somebody like who's praying himself, he's got to really like mimic, the whole thing, right, from beginning to end. Below yafsik, and he says, be careful, right? Don't make an interruption there. Below yafsik, and don't talk. God forbid. Chas v'shalom. And also, right? Don't forget, step back 3 steps. So he says, since he already prayed this guy, right? אלא ששכח ולא יזכיר, but he didn't mention יעלה ויבוא, על פי שהוא בקיא, even though he knows how to pray, שליח ציבור מוציאו, the שליח ציבור can fulfill his obligation, right, as we said. That's the whole thing. Okay, very good, right? So, as I said, right, today, it's hard for us to do this, so if you can't really do it, then you got no choice to go back and pray again, right? Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. Maybe it catches on to that already. Right? Let's see what he says here. Yeah, he catches it. He caught it. He says, right, that the Achronim already say he should better to go back and pray himself. Why? Because we can't concentrate from beginning to end. It's too hard for us, right? All that stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Right, so yeah, he caught it. Okay, all right, Baruch Hashem. So we're on the same wavelength, though. We're on the same page. Okay, Baruch Hashem, I think that's pretty clear. Any questions? Okay, Chazak Baruch, thanks for coming tonight. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Pray for the victory of the Jews and the release of the captives. And Bezat Hashem, we'll see you tomorrow. Bezat Hashem, God willing. We'll
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless. Laila Tov.
Thank you so much.